Hey DJW, so I just came across this video in which you discuss abortion, and I enjoyed listening to your opinion, but there were some comments and questions concerning the content of that upload that I wanted to run by you in the hopes of engendering an educational and constructive dialogue for the future. I want to split my response into at least two separate videos. In the first video, I will discuss your simplification of the issue, and in the second video, I will discuss the question of personhood and why I feel that it is irrelevant to the legality of abortion. There may actually be 3 video responses because that second video will have a lot more content than this first one, and I may wind up just having to separate it into 2 to fall within a reasonable time criteria. Now, in your video, you simplified the issue of abortion down to one simple question: does a woman, or does she not, have the right to withhold or give consent to pregnancy? But in academic logic, this is what we call the black and white fallacy. You are essentially forcing us to accept one of 2 absolute opposite extremes, when in all actuality there are more moderate possibilities that need to be taken into consideration. It would be the same if I came and asked you, do you love me or hate me? Well, you don't have to love or hate me. There are other options available to you. There are, again, more moderate possibilities that are simply not being taken into consideration by the question. You may like me. You may dislike me. You may have no feelings towards me whatsoever, and that seems much more likely since we don't know each other. But even if you do accept one of the 2 extreme options, you don't have to absolutely accept it. Your love for me may not be unconditional. There may be certain things you love about me, certain things you hate about me. We may have a complex love-hate relationship. Obviously we don't, but the point is that this is a possibility. And when I ask, do you love me or hate me, I am not taking that into account. And it is not that simple. So again, you don't have to accept either one of these extremes, but even if you do choose to do so, you don't necessarily have to accept it absolutely, or accept that it is absolute. And as it is with feelings, so it is with rights. I, for example, would say that I have a right to swing a baseball bat, and I think that you would agree with me. But I also think that you would agree with me that I would not have the right to swing a baseball bat if I was standing in a crowded movie theater, and in order to do so, I would have to crack your mother over the skull, bludgeon a child to death, or kill an old woman. Because my rights do not supersede the rights of any other individual. All rights are equal. And so we cannot exercise our rights to the detriment of somebody else's. And whenever, in order to do something, we must violate somebody's rights, we no longer have the right to do so, even though under other circumstances we would have the right to do so. So it's not as simple as, does the woman or does she not have the right to withhold consent from pregnancy? Now we have to acknowledge the fetus as well, and we have to see if the fetus has rights. And you concluded that the fetus did not have rights, which suggests to me that you actually realize that this issue isn't as simple as whether or not the mother has a right. You also have to question whether or not the fetus has rights. And you did this, and I think that that's good. I actually have to praise you for doing so. I noticed that a lot of pro-choice people are really reluctant to look at the fetus, and it goes for pro-life people as well. They want to shine the spotlight on the fetus and ignore the mother. And for either side, I think that this is dishonest, and I do not feel that it is a judicious thing to do. Because in order to understand the pattern on the loom, you have to look at the whole warp and weft. You can't take a tapestry and then focus on one thread and make a sweeping generalization about the entire image. If you take a step back and you look at the whole thing, you may find that someone has woven the likeness of a Celtic warrior, and that while that thread was white because it was the white of his eye, this man has bronzed skin, and he's tattooed with whorls of blue woad, and he has hair spiked back with salt lime, and he's standing in front of a forest turned scarlet with the seasons pass, and further behind him is a mountain range that has been silhouetted in purple by the sunset of carmine and emerald, and off to his left is a sea of navy blue with frothy gray heads, and he has a pike that is gilded, and on top of this pike is somebody's rotting bluish, greenish, grayish head, and he's bleeding discolored blood into the rust-colored grass. There are so many other colors that you have to acknowledge, and if you only focus on one thread, then you're not going to get the whole issue. You can't say that you understand the issue of abortion because you know what rights a woman does and does not have. And it would be dishonest of you not to acknowledge the fetus, because the fetus is. And if you are not acknowledging what is, then you are being dishonest. You're just choosing to ignore a fact because it is uncomfortable or inconvenient. And again, that's dishonest. It's not judicious. It's not sagacious. It's not something that I would recommend to any individual who wants to have an informed or intelligent opinion. And I guess in terms of philosophy, it's one of those convenient, comfortable lie or hard, uncomfortable truth, which is preferable. And I don't want to get into that. But the point is that no, it is not as simple as whether or not the woman has rights. You also have to acknowledge whether or not the fetus has rights, and that has to be taken into consideration, and it will be in my next video. Thank you.